Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the Porcupine Perspective, the show where Robert and I take a look at politics, philosophy, and current events through the lens of individual freedom and liberty. And if we can, we'll take any opportunity presented to turn somebody's sacred cow into hamburger. Well, Robert, I don't know if you saw this in the news. Here in Kansas, we recently got a Democratically leaning governor elected, just started term, and they just introduced a bill to raise the minimum wage, $15 an hour. And yes, I did say here in Kansas. And but they're going to do it over 2 years. Did you hear anything about that?
No, just similar silly shit. In New York, similar type thing just went through, and they've already got reports and news articles, especially from restaurants responding, doing what one would expect in the market. The cost of labor went up, so the typical response is going to be, okay, lower labor hours, start eliminating some shifts, and raise your menu items. It's all they're left with. I mean, you have to control it somehow, and you have to do business. And gets too out of hand, then what you end up with is you end up with empty buildings. I mean, people vote with their feet and go set up shop somewhere else.
Are you just now introducing the novel concept of when you increase the cost of doing business, that the business must increase the cost to the consumer?
I know it's crazy. It really is.
Dude, can you imagine if only the lawmakers understood this concept? It's such a novel idea.
No, they just don't care. That's the point. If they knew basic economics, real world economics, these types of things wouldn't take place. But then, socialism and real world economics don't mesh.
Well, I remember there was this quote, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, from Thomas Sowell. You guys will hear that name again and again and again on this show. He's one of my favorite, I guess you could say, freedom celebrities. Maybe that word works. But it goes along the lines of, I can't think of a worse way to organize a society than by having people make decisions that do not feel the repercussions of those decisions. They pay no penalty for being wrong. And on the flip side of this, if you think about it, we literally have the people that are going to benefit from the increased minimum wage making the decisions to increase the minimum wage, because of course these people in their mind are going to be making more money per hour. And so what does that mean for the government?
Well, I mean, here you go. I'll draw a little comparison here. All right, I was going to say that it sounds like, overpaid weathermen, but weathermen are about 50-50, and yeah, our government is not.
Well, weathermen have to be right eventually, or they do get terminated.
Do they?
Well, they got to be close. They've at least got to look good on TV. Let's just leave it like that.
Maybe within the same week,
Okay. I'll grant you that. Now, guys, we're going to talk about immigration and the wall, or the proposed wall, today. Before we do that, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Strikeforce Energy. If you haven't had an opportunity to try it yet, I cannot. Oh my God! I just drew a blank. I cannot express to you how good of a supplement it is. It can be added to any beverage of your choice. I typically use water. Strawberry flavored water and the lemonade version work very well. If you're like me, it's January, first time in the gym in a long time. It works great in your workout bottle. No sugar, no calories to circumvent what you're trying to do in the gym. And if you go to strikeforceenergy.com, use promo code NOMORECANS, you'll receive 20% off your order. Now, Robert, if I remember correctly, you just tried this for the first time, right?
Yeah, and I'll definitely second the cohesive part of your comment.
The second part of the cohesive, that's some big words, and it was very uncohesive. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a long day, and I appreciate my co-host here bringing further light to my stumbling on microphone. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk about
You're
this after the show.
I'm
It-
certain of it.
oh yes. Anyway, the wall, the borders, immigration. I'm gonna let you start this one out. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Well, I mean, you know, where do we want to start? I mean, this is pretty wide and general topic, and it has far-reaching. I guess in part start out with like a overview of what, the topics we want to hit. One, being the wall itself. Should that exist? Should it be there? Two being open borders topic, idea that. Um, Another one, the types of folks that are coming and what people's views are on that, what may be realistic, and which views may be far fetched. Um, the impact, um, or if you believe there is none, on the economy here from the influx, and then it also draws over into the current shutdown since that's the main topic of it, and how that's affecting folks, and we can trail off from there.
Okay, sounds good. As far as immigration goes, I'll go ahead go on record here. I fully support open borders. I fully support open immigration. I know it's not a popular stance to take. Even within the liberty movement, there's a lot of bickering back and forth about it, and I get it. I understand it. I'm not going to sit here on my soapbox and tell everyone else they're unprincipled or they're not thinking about things or they're not logical just because they don't agree with me. I just came to the realization that I do not have the right to impede anyone else's movement across some imaginary line in the sand. And, there are going to be people who tell me it's not imaginary, that it's on a map. Okay. I still say it's the same thing. I also point back to the history of this country. When it was founded, there was nothing but open borders. In fact, most of the railroads that went west were built by people that came in from the west. They didn't even go through Ellis Island, for instance. I believe a lot of the people that are coming here are trying to make a better life for themselves. Now, are there criminal elements within them? Absolutely. I mean, only an idiot would say there's no criminals that are coming across. In a technical aspect, since it is illegal to become an illegal immigrant, it's almost in the name, then of course they're all criminals by that definition. But I don't believe that the vast majority of these people are harming anyone.
Yeah, you're talking about violent crime.
Yeah, I'm talking about crime that there's actually a victim associated with it. Now, the other thing I would say is that if there's someone that is intent on doing harm, the fact that immigration is illegal is not going to stop someone who is intent on killing someone. If you're willing to violate what is one of the most sacrosanct laws that we have as humans, which is taking the life of another human being that is not aggressing against you, a little no entry sign is not going to stop you. It's the same argument that the people that are gun supporters make. You put up a sign that says no guns allowed. A criminal intent on doing harm is not going to pay any attention to that sign whatsoever. So I guess in conclusion, I'd say absolutely open borders. And I want immigration. I want it to be easy. And I think if it was easy, that people would no longer go across the desert, pack themselves in the back of U-Hauls, and try to come across illegally. Now, there was an interesting statistic I saw today, and I'm going to turn the floor over to you for your stance. 40%, as of August, and I couldn't find any newer statistics, must be because of the shutdown.
Yeah.
August of last year, 40% of the people that were considered illegal immigrants were actually due to expired visas. People that entered the country legally but stayed beyond the expiration date.
I saw that also.
Yeah, I don't see a wall stopping that. Most of these people came in through airports or boats. All right, your turn, sir.
All right. Um, and I'll definitely uh, just a precursor. Sean and I have a little different view on this, which shows, oh, looky there, people can have different opinions on an arguable matter and still work together. Look at that. Oh my God. Anyway,
Novel
so
concept.
yeah, I know. You go into some of these chat rooms and you see people attacking each other over single views, and it's like, okay, that's fine and all, but don't eat your own. It's not going to help. It's not going to help the movement, that's for sure.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you want to watch people eat their own, just watch our own government. That's a field day in itself. But anyway, um, my view's a little different. One, with the caravans and whatnot, I don't like the orchestration because essentially, maybe it's conspiracy theorist in me, but um, these caravans per se, I see that as being organized by somebody on purpose. Um, so that's really my only commentary on that part. Um, the other elements that do exist, that some of this is, it has an impact on the economy because the services are getting abused. I do know for a fact that people come over and they'll work for 3 months in the U.S. They hand over a social security number at the border, and somebody else comes over and works for 3 months, and that same account also gets benefits. So yeah, I'm not thrilled with that. The other MO, if you will, would be to come across the border, set up a PO box uh, with fake social and collect benefits from that. Uh, Also an issue, which grates me. But then if I'm to transfer over on the security type issue, the one issue I see with an open border is right now it would essentially be analogous to going outside your front door and, well, quite literally, going and shooting the folks' siblings in your neighborhood and then leaving your door open unprotected, because that's essentially what we've done for a couple generations worth of people, which in essence causes, that causes some alarm for what can happen. Uh, let's see. The wall itself, um, highly expensive, unnecessary, and anybody that has a ladder, and there's already so many tunnels that go under the border. This is really kind of silly. All I see it as being essentially the world's largest structure, and Trump's name will be on it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
Now,
go ahead, sorry.
and yeah, I'll say this last part, and then I'll throw it over to you. Um, there was a good argument on the 10th Amendment Center. I was listening to that, and I think they were using a source off Reason.com, and it was going into uh, the ideas whether Trump has the ability to do this, and the subsequent answer was no, and whether this was constitutional, and that answer was no. Um, you can go to Reason and check that out for yourself. It's a recent article if you want to read the details on that. But I don't want to get too far in the weeds on that. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I'll obviously want to backtrack here just a little bit, make sure we have some clarification. And I already know what your stances are, but I want to make sure everyone else knows what they are as well. Now, it sounds to me one of the big detractors from this is the fact that we have a welfare state. Would you agree that that's the case for you?
Yeah, I will agree with that.
And I can't remember which one of the famous liberty celebrities. Was it Rothbard that had the similar stance, or was it Friedman?
It was Rothbard.
I thought it was Rothbard. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't stepping in any poo-poo.
Yeah, I think it was in Ethics of Liberty.
That sounds right. Yes, that does sound right. I can't think of, and this is going to sound terrible, I can't think of anything more American that these guys could be doing than coming over here and taking advantage of a welfare system. I know that doesn't make it right, but you got to admit that's pretty American, because we already have a ton of people that are doing that. Yeah, absolutely. So my rebuttal to that would, of course, be let's get rid of the welfare system. And I know you would agree with that as well.
Absolutely.
And I think both of us, if we're both being honest and both being logical, would say that the likelihood of the welfare system going away versus a border being built is slim to none. Because we've already seen what happened, in Greece, in Paris, anywhere where any austerity measures happen, where people lose benefits that are coming to them from the government, they revolt. And it gets bloody. So the likelihood of removing the welfare state is low. I will grant you that. And the likelihood of the wall getting built is much higher. For me personally, I would rather focus on dismantling the welfare state, because that costs us nothing. Whereas obviously building the wall, that is, as you've already mentioned, impractical, ineffective, inefficient, actually costs us money, and in many ways empowers the government even more.
Well, I'll interject. I agree that the ridding of the welfare state altogether is, a slim possibility, very slim. But our all-knowing overseers should definitely be able to weed out whether somebody's actually a citizen or not.
That's true. They should be able to. They should also be able to weed out whether or not the person that is taking advantage of it is doing that in and of itself, regardless of whether they're from this country or not. But we already see that. And I don't know how it is set up in your state. Here in Kansas, you get basically a debit card. And I cannot tell you how many times you go to the store and you have people that are selling those dollars on that card for 50 cents on the dollar. And what they will do is you fill up your groceries, and they swipe their card, and let's say it was $100 is what the card is what the grocery card amounted to. You give them $50 cash, because the cash has no restrictions. They can go buy cigarettes, they can go buy alcohol, they can go buy whatever they want, whereas the card can only be used for certain items.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's from what I've seen, that's pretty much, I think, how it works in most states here.
And I didn't know how you guys were where you're at. I remember growing up, and I grew up way down south, guys, in Mississippi. And granted, this was a long time ago. I would say the 80s is when I remember it. And my grandfather ran a battery and alternator shop. And to help people out that did not have the money, he would actually trade them government commodities for the work, the battery, or the alternator. And I can remember growing up eating the food. He would come home with sacks of flour, beans, cheese, you name it. And obviously it's more efficient to do it the way that we do now, because you don't have to worry about shipping costs or any of that. It's all done electronically. But it's changed considerably in the last few years. But not going too deep into people taking advantage of welfare. We could spend an entire episode going down that road. It needs to go away. The welfare system does need to go away, and it needs to go away for both sides. And I understand people's objection to that, but I look at the dollar figure, and the dollar figures, I would be willing to bet, are significantly less that are going to the people that are coming here illegally than the people that are here doing it illegitimately.
No, for a fact. I mean, it's just a matter of numbers there.
Yeah, absolutely. And even per capita, we could even go down that road and we could see where it lays. But it doesn't really matter in the long run. I mean, my argument, and I come obviously from a different state, the majority of the people that I have worked with in the past, if they are not here legally, they don't raise their hand to get benefits, because that's a sure way to get popped in the head. So here I am, even though you've got a fake social security number, the chances are greater, at least that's what they tell me, if they're receiving benefits. But of course, it's different everywhere, and I don't want to rely on anecdotal evidence by any stretch of the imagination. Going to the ineffectiveness, one of the reasons that Trump cites for building this wall is to prevent drugs, if I remember correctly, right?
Certainly isn't my citation.
No, I know it's not. Obviously, I know it's not. But I'm kind of steering down the road of the practicality of it. These are slats, guys. It's not a wall. It's still girders going in a vertical direction that you could pass all the drugs you want through. Now, what's really funny is that the Department of Homeland Security has gone on record saying that the majority of drugs that are imported here into the United States come across normal checkpoints in vehicles.
Right, and even if they didn't, they're already using drones. Who cares if it's slat or it's a wall that's 5 feet thick? I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're not going to stop a drone.
And the tunnels are still there. So what?
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't get it, and I think you're nailing it on the head. It's a monument to Trump.
$5.7 billion.
Right, and he will quote that, well, the cost of immigration or illegal immigration so much higher, but he doesn't tell you where he gets the numbers, and he's lumping in the enforcement along the borders. All these costs that would just go away if you just made the road or the path to citizenship easier. Go ahead.
And I got a secret. It's the government. So take that value and multiply it by 4.
Well, it depends on who's doing the estimating. If they want it to sound worse, then it's probably doubled. But if it's an estimate of what it's going to cost to build it, it's in half.
All these estimates that they always give for anything, the actual cost ends up being double to quadruple what it is.
Well, yeah. The cost of like building something or the cost to the country. I meant more like if 100 people were killed, then the government's going to say 2,000 people were killed. It'll be inflated. If it serves their purposes. Now, if it's the other way around, and they want it to sound less, they're going to alter the numbers because the government's trustworthy and all that.
Yeah, I was just more pointing at the inefficiency of anything that gets done.
Oh no, I agree. And you quoted what, 5.7 billion, I believe, is the number Trump's.
Yeah,
at least add a 1 to it. At least add a 1. It's insane. So, kind of encapsulating this whole thing, I know you want the welfare state dropped before, but have borders. Am I right?
The thing is I don't have, I don't really have a problem with the open borders. I just don't want there being any carrots.
And that we 100% agree on. One of the things that grandfather that I had mentioned with a battery shop down in Mississippi, one of the things I remember, and anyone that's lived down south knows that during the summertime, the bugs are flipping horrendous. I mean, they're terrifying. You can hear it like helicopters coming in at night. But I would always walk out the front door and just get bombarded by all these June bugs and mosquitoes and horseflies and all this other crap. And I would complain to him. I said, Grandpa, what's the deal with all these bugs? And he said, well, son, all I got to do is turn off the light. It's exactly the same thing. If what you're saying, we need to turn the light off, that's bringing the wrong people here. If you're coming here for a handout, get the fuck out. I don't want you. If you're coming here to make your life better, man, doors open. What can I do to help you? Because I would make the argument, I am going to make the argument, that the reason this country is in the position that it's in is because of the open immigration that we've had in the past. We have the best and the brightest, or we did have the best and the brightest that were coming here. And I did say coming, not living here. because I
Okay.
know you guys would all argue against me on that point, and I would have to agree with you. But we had so many different ideas and cultures and brains and aptitudes that came in here and intermixed, and it just made us a great country overall. We had one thing that no other country on this planet had, and now we're trying to shit on it, and I don't get it.
Well, I mean, well, there's the strong movement of nationalism that's that's sweeping around to different countries. It seems to have started with us in a big way, and then it's making its way around over in Europe now, and I think it's making its way around over in Europe because I I think for the numbers they're taking in, it affects them a lot greater due to the numbers that they have, and those folks are seeing themselves as starting to lose some of their identity.
Yeah, and they're
I don't
not
know
used to
what.
having to deal with that.
Yeah, and I could see that to a point. I mean, I could relate to that feeling, if I were in that situation. Um, so yeah, just slight commentary on that.
No, and both of them are the results of these caravans that you're talking about. And I'm going to agree with you. I'll put the tinfoil hat on. I don't mind. I've got stock in Reynolds wrap, um, or Reynolds aluminum foil. I, I guarantee you there's some level of orchestration that's happening. Now, whether or not it's our government or some people operating outside the government, or maybe it's their own governments down in Honduras that are like, hey, you know what? We've got an effective way to reduce the cost per citizen. We just evacuate a bunch of citizens and make them someone else's problem. I don't know, but it's hard to imagine this many people that are living in these distant and remote areas all organizing themselves all at one time and hey, let's take a 2,000-mile walk or whatever the distance is. I'm just making numbers up to come here and walk
Right,
through how many flipping countries to get here. But at the
right,
same token, go ahead.
but that can't be because it's Russia who's screwing with the elections. Remember?
Yeah, it's everyone fucking the elections. And I love the fact that that's something that we bring up, and it's like you guys do not study any history, do you? How many regimes, how many countries have we destabilized, either through military force or by installing or causing a coup and then installing someone that was friendly to the United States? Now
And
the good
truckload.
news
I could
is,
start running down a list.
yeah, yeah, we don't have enough time. Now,
No,
what's interesting though is you would think by now that no one else would want this to happen because we always end up killing the people we install anyway. Gaddafi, God, the guy in Iraq, Saddam Hussein.
yeah. Well, I mean, just we tried it in Egypt. That went totally sideways, and so military ended up to people to the military, and they ended up taking that one back over. We tried to do it in Afghanistan, and that's miserable. I mean, it just.
Well, don't forget the one that really started our problems in the Middle East, the Shah in Iran.
Mhm.
I mean, you could argue and argue, I would say pretty well that that was the beginning of a lot of our problems. I mean, history has the West has always had a little bit of a hostile taste of the East, if that makes sense. Like they've always been slightly hostile, but we're a completely different culture, completely different religion. Some of them were welcoming, others, most of them not. But meddling in the affairs of a nation state like Iran did not win us any friends.
No, not at all. Because in effect, they were messing with both sides. So that gets you nowhere.
No.
When you go to straddle that fence, you just get racked, and that's all that's going to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, getting back on track here. One of the things you had talked about was the economic issues. Was there anything other than of having illegal immigration? Anything other than the welfare that you were referring to?
No, no, that was really the main gist of that. Um, I don't really take that, much farther than that. That was really the only issue. Would be, a combination of, healthcare, money, food subsidies, these types of things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
One of the things, and the reason I wanted to touch back on this, and I figured that's kind of where you were coming from, but I hear an argument a lot that these people are depreciating the value of labor here in the United States, basically because they are willing to work for significantly less, especially if they're illegal, than American citizens are. So therefore, they're driving wages down. And if I remember correctly, Trump mentioned that specifically because, of course, one of his core groups that speaks to and speaks to loudly. My deal is this, and I doubt we're going to be much different. If you can get a service done for cheaper and a person is willing to work for less, by God, let them do it. Let them learn the skills that they want to. It's just like the minimum wage. Who the hell is the government or any outside entity to determine the value of another person's labor dollar? If I'm willing to help you move for a 6-pack of beer, then why is that wrong?
Yeah, no, I can completely follow that. I mean, people want to blame them for being the cheaper labor. The jobs were available, so they took them. The thing is, if you want to be mad at somebody, which I'm not saying I am, be mad at the person who employed them. That's it. But in my view, folks, if they have an operation, a company, service, whatever, um, they're well within their right to hire and pay whatever they want to.
And as a callback to, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go.
As a callback to where we started this with the minimum wage, think of the way I think about it is this: we constantly increase regulations on business people, whether it be how much that they have to spend for their labor, all the forms they've got to fill out, EPA, you name it. What is the expectation here? These guys are going to seek out cheaper labor to offset the increased price, or they have to pass the increased price on the consumer. Make up your minds. Which one do you want? If you want the prices to be cheaper, stop putting in the regulations, and maybe these guys will stop hiring these guys to offset it, because it's not easier to have someone work for you that doesn't even speak the language, and you're always looking over your shoulder wondering whether or not, DHS is going to get you. Go ahead. I talked over you. Sorry.
No. I'm just saying that, yeah, I agree with that fact. You got to worry about getting raided. Then if you do get raided, okay, did you just lose half your staff and now you got to replace them, So, yeah, I definitely can't see where it'd be easier. Cheaper, yes. Easier, no.
No, God, no. You've got a completely different culture, completely different language, like we talked about, and then you don't know how reliable they're going to be, not because of them, but because of their status. If they get word that there's raids being conducted in town, I guarantee they're going to be calling in sick, if they call in at all. You're not going to see them because they cannot risk being deported back to their country. So it's not easier. But why is it that these guys are willing to take this risk? And they've got to make ends meet, just like you do, just like I do. And when you're in a business, if you don't make ends meet, you're done. You're toast.
And I will add a little caveat in there. Why aren't all these numbers of people gathering together to caravan to make their country what it should be?
I would argue because it's nearly impossible to do it.
Is it?
I don't know. Can a group of people that are undereducated make their country better? If the country is preventing you, what makes you better? When we see the influx of capitalism within a country, typically the freer the market, the better the results. But if a government will not allow that to happen, or they got their hands in the cookie jar too deep,
You've already gone too far. Um, we got to start with the base. These people are leaving due to violence. So we've taken away the fact that they might they might run amiss trying to use a weapon or defend themselves. It's already a violent culture that's gone on that's caused these people to leave, or so we're told.
Mm-hmm.
So you take these numbers, however many hundreds of thousands come over the border. Um, Sounds like an army to me.
Are
I mean,
you're not saying
but
we're being invaded, are you?
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, when you say army,
I'm
I'm just making sure.
no. What I'm saying and this is a little different viewpoint and may not be popular, whatever. But you take that amount of people, okay, a lot of them, say just south of the border here, um, they're fleeing cartel-run areas, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Um, I don't think the cartel has 100,000 people.
No, they don't, but they do have all the weapons. And they also have the only thing worse than weapons is having the government in your back pocket.
Yeah, yeah, I just, yeah, I don't see it. They just don't have the numbers.
No, the
Uh,
cartel doesn't, but they've got fear and they've got weapons. And I mean, look at it right now. Why don't you and I go march and make a change? We have the weapons. We don't have the numbers. I think you have to have a combination of the two. Now, there was a community in Mexico, if I remember correctly, that got so sick of this shit that they ended up killing the cops, if I remember correctly, or some of the law enforcement are running them off, taking the guns, and then every time the cartel comes in there, they kill the cartel, take their weapons, and they basically police themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is, unfortunately, it's not much better because they're pretty violent amongst themselves. But as you mentioned there, they're part of a violent culture.
I mean, that's just kind of that's just kind of a side viewpoint that I had on it.
Yeah, I mean, could they make a change in their country? I would like to think so. Could they overthrow the cartel? I would like to think so. And hell, since we're talking about them, imagine if we ended the drug war, what that would do to the cartel.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I'm all about that. How long's that going on now? 40 years?
Long enough that it is the longest recorded loss that we have in the United States in a war.
Yeah, it's just silly. It's really really ridiculous because let's face the fact of the matter. We're- yeah, the country's the one that's abetting this. So, who are you fighting now?
We're fighting ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. You're fighting yourselves. I mean, it's just, you know, it's newsflash, folks. It's not just the cartels bringing it in,
No.
but
How do you think the CIA funds a lot of its black operations? By distributing and selling it and importing it. I can't remember. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the guy, the reporter that brought this to light and ended up shooting himself in the back of the head twice.
yeah,
He
some
committed
people,
suicide twice somehow.
yeah, some people are really flexible.
Not only flexible, but I mean bullet resistant. Apparently,
It'll blow your mind.
and it did with him. It absolutely did with him. That was a terrible joke. I'm not
I
going to
know.
apologize, but it was absolutely terrible.
Oh, you don't see me apologizing.
No, I understand. So I want to make a prediction. You brought up the thing with the government shutdown. Basically, you've got Trump that's holding this big thing hostage to get his wall that we know is going to be ineffective, but people support it anyway. And if you don't support it, you're unpatriotic or whatever else. But what's interesting to me is it seems like every year we have a government shutdown. And I
Yeah.
didn't have an opportunity to research when this first happened. Like, was it happening under Bush Jr. that you remember of, or is this something
I,
in the last two
I think so.
presidents? I'm trying to.
How long have we been on continuing resolutions?
I don't know. Too long?
Yeah, it's been, I'm trying to herald back to a time when I wasn't hearing about continuing resolutions
Yeah. Uh,
or stopgap measures.
I think Feinstein put out this really horrendous weapons ban that was going to include pistols, the quote unquote assault rifles that don't exist, and it was going to be harken back to the Brady era.
Oh, I remember. She didn't even know what she was holding.
No, no, not at all. But it was actually more in depth. It was going to ban even more. If it's got a pistol grip, if it's got this certain stock, sliding stocks, whatever. And then it just got pulled. I am willing to bet that we're going to see some sort of negotiation border for gun controls. Now, it won't be as bad as Feinstein originally put out there, but I think, it's a sales technique. You start really high so that it seems like you're a hero when you work it back.
I don't like you anymore. You're helping them.
I'm not helping them. I'm telling you it's what's happening. I'm telling you it's what's happening. We don't know it yet. And I could be wrong, guys. I'm wrong all the time. But I'm really concerned, and I think this is something we've got to watch out for. That it's if he does get his funding for this bill, we want to take a good hard look at the bill.
And I can go with you on that. I'm just trying to decide which is the more sacred cow, whether it's going to be global warming or whether it's going to be gun control.
It's going to be gun control. I think it's going to be gun control because they have been trying and trying and trying. They have control now, except of the presidency. We're going to see it happen. Now, whether it gets defeated or not, I don't know. I think the NRA is going to lay over and take it, just like they did with the bump stock. And there are people on the right that support this bump stock ban and go, it's just an accessory. It makes it automatic. It does this. It's horse shit.
Yeah, but you also got to weigh in the fact there's people already invested in the climate change thing. Going back several years when these carbon exchange markets were up, got set up. There's a lot of money that's been invested in that, and that's why there's such a push for it.
Right.
Newsflash, folks, it's not because they care about you. And they don't care about the planet either. It's just silly. Those markets were set up. A lot of thought went into that, and I'm willing to guarantee there's a lot of money just sitting and waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, and you're probably right.
That's the only reason that I look at those two. One's okay. You got one for that's idealistic and also control grabbing, which will gain you power. But then you've got another one that immediately affects folks' pocketbooks, which is a gift that'll keep on giving, hence giving them more power. So trying to figure out which one might win there.
Here's what I would say. Getting rid of one of them before the other allows the other one to happen easier.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the guns, guys. Get rid of some of the guns. It makes it a lot easier to pass whatever the hell you want because it's less likely that people are going to stand against you. Just imagine what Paris would look like, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, but imagine what Paris would look like if the people in the yellow vests had the same weaponry that the cops did.
Well, we'll see what happens. You try that not countrywide. You saw Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think that's as good a place as any to go ahead and wrap it up, unless there's any final thoughts you've got.
I just want to say to folks, thank you for following us on our tangents. We tend to do that, when we've been sitting and having conversation over the past dozen years or so, we tend to tangent off, and we're carrying that into here. But we try to keep mainly on topic and things that are relevant to what we're talking about. So thanks for hanging in there with us.
Absolutely. And a couple other things. We now have a website, porcupinepov.com. It's up and running. Robert's got a couple articles that he's written up, if I remember correctly, on there.
Yeah, there's 2 up there.
And we're planning on adding some more. There's actually a video that I have been working on that does not include my ugly mug. That should be up on it and also on our YouTube channel that we have. So if those are things that you enjoy looking at, or you want to see some different takes on stuff, read some of Robert's articles, definitely check out porcupinepov.com. And just like Robert said, I can't echo it enough. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Always looking back over your shoulder, waiting around to make your move. Don't hold back, come on and get down to it. Live your life the way that you wanna. Let your fire